Welcome to The Explainer. You know, we're surrounded by plants every single day, but how often do we really stop and think about what's going on inside of them? Today, we're going to do just that. We're peeling back the layers to see how each part of a plant works together in this one incredible living system. Let's get right into it.
Seriously, it's a simple question, isn't it? You see a flower on your windowsill or a tree in the park, and it just sits there. But underneath that quiet, still surface, there's a bustling, perfectly coordinated factory at work. So how does a plant actually live and eat and grow? Let's trace the whole journey, right from the ground up.
To really get how the whole system clicks, you've got to start where the plant starts, down in the soil. We're going to follow the flow of energy and water, and we'll begin with the part of the plant that does all the first and maybe the toughest heavy lifting.
So, first up, the roots. The best way to think about them is as two things at once. They're the plant's anchors, holding it steady in the ground, and they're also its straws, literally drinking up everything it needs from the soil. They are the essential and usually unseen foundation for everything that you see growing above ground.
So their main gig, their number one job, is to pull in water and all those vital nutrients directly from the soil. This is the absolute first and most critical step in the plant's entire life support system. Nothing else happens without this.
So really, it all boils down to two critical jobs. First, absorption. They're constantly searching through the soil, soaking up water and minerals. And second, anchorage. Gripping the earth so the plant stays stable and doesn't get knocked over by wind or rain. One job provides food and water, the other provides stability, and you absolutely need both.
Okay, so the roots have done their job. They've got a good supply of water and nutrients. But how does that supply get from deep underground all the way up to the very highest leaf? Well, for that, you need a transport system.
And that's exactly where the stem comes in. If the roots are the foundation, then the stem is the plant's internal superhighway. It serves as both the main structural support and the primary delivery route for the whole operation. At its core, the stem is basically the plant's skeleton. Its most obvious job is just providing that support, right? It holds the leaves and the flowers up high, stretching them out towards the light, making sure they get the sunlight they need, which, is the key to our very next step.
So yeah, the stem has this two-part mission. On the outside, structurally, it lifts the leaves up to catch the sun. But on the inside, it's that super highway we were talking about, with a whole network of tiny tubes that channel water from the roots all the way to the top.
Okay, so the delivery has been made. Water has traveled all the way up from the roots through the stem's highway system and has reached its destination. But why? What was the whole point? What happens now that these raw materials have arrived?
This brings us to the real powerhouses of the plant, the leaves. And really, it's best to stop thinking of them as just leaves and start thinking of them as thousands of tiny, super efficient, solar-powered food factories. Because the leaves have one primary, absolutely incredible job, making food. Everything the roots and the stem have done up to this point has all been to supply these little factories with their most important ingredient, water. Now the factory can finally get to work.
So how does this factory actually work? It's through this amazing process called photosynthesis. The leaves take the water that was delivered by the stem, they pull in carbon dioxide from the air all around them, and then they use energy they absorb from sunlight to cook it all together. This reaction creates sugars, and that's the food, the fuel that powers the entire plant's growth. So the plant has grown, it's been feeding itself, and it's healthy. What's next on the to-do list? Well, survival isn't just about one plant living its life. It's about making sure there's a next generation. And that's where the flowers and seeds come in. This is the plant's department of new beginnings.
And this brings us to this beautiful, brilliant cycle of reproduction. The flower, that's the engine of the whole process. Its entire purpose, really, is to create seeds. And the seed itself, that's the final product. It's this tiny, self-contained little package that holds the complete blueprint to start this entire journey all over again.
So let's just do a quick recap and put it all together. It all starts with the roots, absorbing water and anchoring the plant. That water gets moved up by the stem, which supports the plant and transports the goods.
Then the leaves use that water plus sunlight and air to make food. And finally, the flowers create the seeds to make new plants. Each part has its own unique job, but they only work when they all work together as a complete system.
And that really brings us to the biggest takeaway, and it's captured perfectly in this quote from our source. It says, "Each part of a plant helps the plant get what it needs. No single part can do it alone. The roots need the leaves need the stem. The whole system works in this perfect, quiet harmony." It's just a beautiful example of how interconnected everything is.
So I'll just leave you with this one final thought. The next time you see a plant, whether it's a tiny weed pushing through the sidewalk or a giant old tree, what part are you going to notice first? Will you think about those hidden roots working underground, the sturdy stem, the factory-like leaves, or the promise held in a flower? Hopefully, you'll see it all as one complete, amazing system at work.